It takes a lot to build a video game from scratch. Even a side-scroller can take a large amount of planning, art design, sound design, script writing, coding, music, voice acting, debugging, and playtesting. And a game on Cyberpunk scale had to take a large amount of all these things to achieve the sheer size and amount of stories it tells. You can tell in its animation, in its voice actors,
This is Jackie Wells.
in its music, in its well-realized style, and in its extremely well-depicted story just how much they wanted it to succeed. When it launched, it was in pretty horrible shape. It had a lot of problems.
The honking. The honking is the best part.
Technical and otherwise, and there were a lot of decisions that probably could have prevented a lot of the development hell that the game experienced, and we might have got a more realized version for it. But at the time, I had played through it for about 30 hours, finished the story, and decided to pick it back up again in a few years once they fixed the bugs and brought more to the game. I thought I'd give it another shot recently, and while some bugs are still in the game, it's been cleaned up enough to where you can experience all it has to offer without the bugs completely taking you out of it. I've 100%ed all missions and side missions in the game as a male street kid and a female corpo on different difficulties, and as an overall experience, it's worth the playthrough. Its main story left a pretty big impression on me. It reminded me how well Keanu Reeves can inherit a role when he's given great material. All of the side missions have a vibrant cast of characters that you get to dive further into. The main voice actor for both sexes did an incredible job of making me believe their role.
You're the best of the best, Vic. Why can't you help me?
I don't believe I ever used the game's fast travel system either because their roads were so well thought out, and I genuinely enjoyed driving around to take in all the detail that they put into the city. And I gotta say, it might be mocapped, but whoever did the animation for the guitar playing really nailed it. As someone that plays guitar, it really bugs me to see fake-ass guitar playing in animation sometimes. So seeing CDPR bring that much care to the animation was an absolute joy for me to see. While a lot's been fixed, most of the original problems I had with the game are still there, and they're things I still have trouble looking past. At the game's launch, everyone else's main complaints were the bugs and graphical issues because of the state the game got released in. And while the bugs were definitely an issue, my complaints were very different. To really understand what I mean, I need to go back to the release hype. Before the game's release, it seemed like such an epic experience from a well-trusted and proven developer, and the marketing really brought the heat.
You're breathtaking!
The game was sold as this epic tale that wanted to immerse you into its rough concrete jungle and allow you to embrace a world just as fluid and lively as the one that you live and breathe in. I had so many questions, but eventually landed on one that I couldn't put down after I saw the 2018 trailer. I was honestly curious of how you die in Night City. Do you wake up in a landfill with Johnny every time and have to make your way back to where you were? Does your partner Jackie take you to a hospital? Do you wake up in a Ripper Docs clinic that you made friends with in the game? I was so curious I ended up asking CDPR as a shot in the dark, and remarkably they were nice enough to respond. Unfortunately they told me it's not something that they could share. The secrecy around such a small detail about the game just made me even more sure that it was going to be something cool that they thought of. A couple of delays later, I finally got the game and the question was about to be answered. I was kinda bummed when I saw this, but I ended up just shrugging it off because I figured I had more unique things to look forward to. But this turned out to be a small symptom of a much bigger problem that this title has. Some of the missions would have had to be changed to accommodate for a more fluid death system, and it was a pretty understandable sacrifice that was made for the sake of the story. But it probably would have been a bit less disappointing if they had decided to go with a more challenging route with it than just using the most tired and overrated death system in the history of gaming. There were so many different things they could have done to make such a simple thing so unique. There's even a mechanic in the lore of the source material for you to use. Doesn't getting picked up by trauma team and waking up in a hospital or even a Ripper Doc to pay a fee sound so much more fun and immersive than just loading a save file? You don't get to learn anything by exploring either because it's all on a marker for you. Just go here, you'll get a mission. Done. You've created such a massive, stylistic city for me to gawk at, and I feel like you only get to experience it in this weird bubble that's been crafted around just you and your character, and nothing else is happening in the city beyond just the quest markers it gives you. The scripted gameplay where you're guaranteed to have a gang come after you doesn't even require you to shoot to get out of the situation.
¡Chingado!
Let me feel like I've pissed off a gang or like I'm a high priority target for an organization while I'm just out and about. Doesn't even have to be the crazy chase mechanics that were promised in the gameplay trailer. I wanted gangs that would recognize me if I did something stupid to them. I can't recall how many Tiger Clan members that I publicly killed just to see what would happen, but when I go to the organization's leader, she just says,
Hello. You wanted to talk?
when I start causing mayhem, cops just spontaneously appear instead of showing up in vehicles or flying in to stop my stupidity from spreading. Give me cops that aren't just cyber dudes that spawn off screen with 0 cars in sight. Bring some of those big ass threatening police flying vehicles and some mechs to make me fight if I do too much stupid shit. Make them chase me across building tops, make me feel like I need to blow some shit up in order to get out of the encounter with the cops instead of just driving 6 blocks south until they stop giving a damn. The way things currently are is so bland and generic, and it sucks because you have such a unique way you could approach so much of your gameplay that no other game could, and it's wasted. That's probably the biggest offense that this game has, and it causes almost every disappointing symptom that you'll see. That amazing interactive scene where you're sitting with Victor getting modifications on your body and experiencing them in first person made me so immersed and so excited to get to know other Ripper Docs, and even more excited to see the next animations for any new upgrades you get. And I instantly got disappointed because it happens that one fucking time, and from then on you just install shit from a menu the same way you'd purchase a sweet roll from Skyrim.
Then I took an arrow in the knee.
When Claire asks you to join a series of races where you get to use weapons,
What's the race like? Any special rules?
Lack of them, actually. You race in pairs, driver and gunner.
I was expecting a really fun cyberpunk set of weaponized races, sort of like Twisted Metal or Mario Kart, and immediately thought, finally a side mission that's just a fun time. The way the game sells it makes it sound like such a unique, fun experience of some sort, and so I was excited to get the mission started. In all honesty, I was really hoping it would be a glimpse of what the multiplayer racing would look like. But the only reason they even mention using weapons in the race at all is an excuse for a side quest that originally promised you fun racing to suddenly have an extra story plot for an NPC that serves you drinks at a bar.
Why tell me about Dean? Meaning, why now?
V's asking why now because out of all the 4 races that you're given, Claire literally waits until the 4th and final race to drop this on you, by the way.
He died during a race last year. The final. Not your standard fatality, though.
What's the race like? Any special rules?
Lack of them, actually.
This have something to do with our race?
Sort of. Thing is, Dean was murdered.
What's the race like? Any special rules?
Lack of them, actually. He was flatlined by Corporal Eagle Weasel, Peter Sampson. Exceptional walking rot.
Your husband. How'd he die exactly?
We'd just powered into the final straight. Sampson peeling up the tarmac ahead of us. Was clear we couldn't win, so Dean let up on the chew. And then that snake slammed on the brakes. Dean also had to. We lost control.
Any special rules?
Lack of them, actually.
But isn't that how this race works?
You don't get it. Road was clear to the finish line. He would have won. It was premeditated. Lack of them, actually.
The entire side quest is just racing while Claire sticks her head out the window and pretends to shoot things, and I say pretend because none of her shooting ever accomplishes anything. It honestly made me laugh a little bit from the sheer disappointment of such a promising, fun offer the game gave me, and it was beginning to feel like a bad joke that kept repeating at this point. This story was so forced in at the last minute and for some reason expects you to be invested in it. It was the first time that the game had made me legitimately mad when it told me that I had to throw the last race in order to avenge her husband. And at the end of this side quest, the only real question I ended up asking was, why couldn't this just have been some fun races?
This is your hunt for vengeance, not mine. Enlisted me to race, not to kill in cold blood.
Fuck the race! He killed my husband!
Did we really need an extra story plot that starts on the last race to be the entire centerpiece of your gameplay for all the races in your entire game? I mean, if a story is needed, fine, but the gameplay overall is going to feel completely boring if it's always taking a backseat to something else. And in the end, if you promise me a fun time with guns in a car, at least deliver on it. And the worst part is there's a lot of things in the game that share this empty gameplay promise. It's like they had a choice between making things into a full-fledged game mechanic or a one-time sequence and chose the easiest route possible. That way when people complain that things are missing from the game, all they have to do is say,
"Oh, go figure, look at this. Oh, look at this. Would you look at this? Oh, would you look at this?"
But just because you can point at a picture of food, that doesn't suddenly make it food. This honestly reminds me of those eBay scams that promise an expensive product for cheap as hell and then just send you a printout picture of the thing you wanted. These are things I wanted from the game, not because I somehow convinced myself that the game would include them from hoping alone, but because the game was sold with those parts as part of the promise. When I saw the sequence at the beginning of the game where the police unit deals with some random carjackers in the street,
Doesn't look like your average bust.
that convinced me that I wouldn't just be chased by a tiny drone and dudes that spawn just off screen. When I placed that patient on the stretcher, I expected to see Trauma Team coming to pick up bodies that I'd laid out on a mission, or even just while I was fucking around on a street somewhere. But they're never in the game again aside from reviving the same dead body as a permanent sideshow on a few street corners. When the end of the first teaser trailer showed the main character posing as police with the dudes that were shooting her, I had the tiniest hope that we'd get some Night City cop and trauma team duty like the ambulance and fire truck jobs you could get in GTA 3. Wouldn't it have been awesome to be able to fly around doing NCPD missions with the cops instead of just finding them like every other map marker? Wouldn't it have been awesome to get on board a trauma team vehicle to be dropped at locations they were too scared to go retrieve people? I suppose I'm drawing a lot of comparisons to other titles, but when you make the announcement that your game is going to be the future of open world cities, you at least expect it to be trying it as hard as the competition. And then there's the city itself.
We've greatly enhanced our crowd and community system to create the most believable city in any open world game to date.
You shouldn't brag about how real your crowd system is going to be if I can't even interact with the crowd beyond hearing random banter.
It's a beautiful day, huh?
It doesn't matter how big and stylistic you've made your city if I'm only allowed to experience it when a quest says I'm allowed to. I never once saw any Maelstrom playing basketball like I was hoping to join into a game of. There's no tram in this city that you get to ride around on, even though they made entrances for them. You can't sit on a stool without having a quest involved with it. There's no random world events you get to come across. Nobody ever randomly tries to hold you up. Flying vehicles are completely absent apart from the scripted sequence at the beginning of the game for corpos. And the only time you ever use the spider bot is in one mission where you don't even get to control it the way they say you do.
Watch this! Fully integrated Link 2, so when the spider starts crawling up walls dangling from ceilings.
Could lose your lunch.
How do you think this will make me look? People will start saying I've lost control of Watson, district I'm from.
A week. That's all we can promise you.
We will try, and that is all I can promise you.
Okay, Flathead's in.
And then from there, it's never seen or heard from again. This gameplay definitely made me lose my lunch, but probably not in the way that they were expecting. You showed me so much, and the only thing it did was remind me just how much marketing teams like to bullshit people to hype things up. Had they just announced it for new console gen only, worried less about having to optimize it for older consoles, and gotten to focus more on the gameplay, maybe some of these elements would have made it into the release. I'll admit that the game isn't broken or unplayable anymore, but if you were to put aside its main and side stories, the only unique gameplay it brings to the table to set itself apart is hacking, guns, and brain dances. And it's such a shame because you have access to such a rich treasure trove of source material that gives you so many different, unique, and fun sounding game mechanics that you could bring to your world, and we get to fully experience 3 of them. I'm really hoping CDPR can bring it together and remind everybody that they're more than just a company that writes good dialogue gameplay. Mario probably has the most bland and overtold story in the history of humankind, but it's a household name because the gameplay has a fully realized unique identity, and it's all incredibly fun to play. Cyberpunk is in this really weird place where it has the complete opposite problem of great unique stories but lacks the fully unique gameplay for all of it to exist in. I haven't heard a whole lot about the multiplayer, but I gotta say if it turns out to be a bunch of the same stuff, it's probably a multiplayer game I'll be passing up on. Cyberpunk Edgerunners comes out in September on Netflix, and if it's got the same amazing voice acting and writing as the game, it'll probably be a series I recommend. I still stand by what I said earlier, you should still definitely play this game and experience the stories it has. And if Cyberpunk were to fix these issues and dream a little bigger with its gameplay experiences, it would probably be the massive hit that it set out to be in the first place. And I really hope they do, because I want nothing more than for this IP to find its ground and to start punching up. This is the current state of Cyberpunk 2077. If you'd like to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.